Hello and welcome to this episode of Writing Thoughts. Now, this is going to be a short one as I'm going to be addressing an interesting topic about writing, and that is vivid descriptions. Some writers are against them, preferring a more simplistic approach to their writing style, whereas others like to paint a vivid picture of the world in order to immerse the reader. And I believe that many writers settle somewhere in the middle. So, in this video, I'm going to be talking about what vivid descriptions are. I'm going to be giving you some examples, and more importantly, I'm going to be showing you how and when to use them. Now, vivid descriptions are all about the senses. You have your visuals, such as the color, the shape of something, the lights and the shadows. You have your auditory, from the soft murmurs to the loud crashes, the background noise. Next you have your smells, from the flowers to the smoke. The taste of something, whether it be as sweet as honey or as bitter as coffee. Finally, the tactileness of something, the texture. Is it as rough as bark, as smooth as silk? It's all about specifying these details, and you can use vivid descriptions in almost every circumstance in your writing. One of the most basic ways to be vivid with your description is simply to use more uncommon words, for example using scarlet or crimson instead of red. It also helps to convey emotion and atmosphere. For example, a character in a dire situation might be suffocating with a sense of dread. Now let's move on to the next part, which is a few examples. An average description of something, such as a garden, would be to say, the garden was full of bright flowers. And it's an okay description. But if you want to make it more vivid, you'd say the garden is bursting with vibrant blooms, each petal a splash of color against an emerald sea of leaves. It's a far more compelling picture, as it uses more evocative language such as bloom or splash, which have greater connotations than simply saying that the garden is full of flowers. And some people do like the directness of something. To say that the old house was scary, for example, is okay. It conveys a feeling that the reader needs to understand about the character. However, if the character feels that the house at the end of the street looms over them, its windows like hollow eyes, ever watching, well, that still tells the reader that the person is scared, but in a far more vivid way. And yes, in some cases it might help to break out a thesaurus and use words that not only fit what you're looking for, but also sound good in the context of the scene. And using metaphors and visuals are a great way to create vivid descriptions. Because you don't have to be so flowery with your language, you don't have to use longer words. All you need to do is describe a feeling. For example, let's say there's a scene where the main character is meeting another character who really captures their heart. It's okay to say that she stood out against the night sky that was behind her. However, it's a lot better to say that her eyes may have been as dark as the night, but they were so much deeper. And try as he might, he couldn't help but get lost in them. Not only is it a vivid description that says the same thing, which is that she stood out against the night sky, but it helps convey the emotion of the scene, the feelings of the character. It helps the reader to better understand their mindset and the actions that might follow. And that brings us to the third part, which is when to use your vivid descriptions. A couple of weeks ago, I discussed the importance of pacing, especially in thriller novels, but it's important in every novel. One of the points I covered was that to slow a scene down, you would have to be more descriptive. You would have to convey a sense of urgency in those high intense scenes, so there isn't time for description. So with that in mind, vivid descriptions being longer, they can slow down the pacing of a scene tremendously. One shouldn't use vivid descriptions in these high intensity scenes, as they not only take away the urgency, but the effect that you're trying to convey with that scene. So let's take that early description, which was describing a garden and how it burst with vibrant colors, but this time we're going to add some short sentences on either side of it. The first part establishes what the scene is, a character walking through the garden. The second part vividly describes said garden. And then third, it gets straight to the point with the character and with some plot information. So, as this character walks through the garden, they barely notice this array of colors around them. Her mind was somewhere less comforting. A great use of vivid description, but without overwhelming the reader with boring details. So to break down those three parts, vivid descriptions are easy to use and require you to use longer, more flowery language in most circumstances, especially encouraging you to use metaphor. The second part showed you how vivid descriptions are used to give them purpose in a scene and make a scene really stand out. And the third part simply about when to use them and how often to use them when you do. And to share some of my own opinions on this, I would say that it's important to include vivid descriptions in your novel whenever you feel it applicable. It's great to have an Hemingway-esque way of writing and be so straightforward all the time. But I also feel that you're leaving an opportunity to be impactful, to convey emotion in your story if you choose to ignore those scenes for something that's far more simplistic. So even if it's cheesy at sometimes, it might be better to include vivid descriptions where it matters the most. I hope you enjoyed this short video on vivid descriptions, and if you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. As always, good day, good night, and happy writing.